Can the Hexenzirkel be aiming to revive the powers of the Moon Sisters? This was the one biggest question that I have after watching the new song of the Welkin Moon teaser, Moonlit Ballad of the Night. Well, it was amongst one of the biggest questions that I had. Of course, I want to know how Durin and Hat Guy is gonna play into the Not Cry section of things, how Sandrone, how do you say her name? I don't know, is gonna serve as the Harbinger side piece to Columbina, or maybe it can be the other way around in terms of how much screen time they be getting, I don't know. But those questions are gonna have to wait because the Hexenzirkel mages are finally making an actual physical appearance instead of them appearing as some Toroko cop-off design kind of thing. That being said, with their Not Cry appearances and then everyone pretty much saying that the moon is gonna be the big element that everyone in the story is gonna be either gunning to learn about or somehow take over, plus with how many factions now confirmed to have taken over several ancient elemental powers, I think the Hexenzirkel's presence in Not Cry will serve to be the next step of this whole takeover process. Humans, or I guess more accurately Teyvat, are taking fate into their own hands. And the Hexenzirkel is probably about to be one of their biggest guides. Now, we first gotta retrace our steps to the kinds of power that Teyvat beings are taking from the gods that ruled them. We have the obvious one being the Tsaritsa covets the power of all the Gnosis that the heavenly principles have made to ensure that they had control of the authority of Teyvat's elements and already has all of them except for Mavika's. The second side is that we have teasers from the Stygian Onslaught skins that the five sinners of Khandria, Raptatir, Vedrfolnir, Reindotter, Rerir, and Sertologi are doing some sort of a mirror of the Shades' powers of life, death, time, void/space, while also having an additional power that has something to do with reason. And of course, beyond that, we also now know that two of the sinners have possessed powers that seems to broach upon the two opposing spectrums of Teyvat's power scales. Vedrfolnir had enough connection to the Abyss in order to influence the founding of the Abyss Order, while Reindotter was potentially having been the source of the cataclysm that decimated Khandria, is now literally one of the four shades, after having devoured the ruler of life, Nabirius' heart. So, with that knowledge, we can now say that the power of the Abyss is being wielded by the Abyss Order and its followers, while a portion of the celestic power of the Shades and the Gnosis made by the Heavenly Principles are now either wielded by beings from Teyvat's human realm or have returned to its rightful owner in the case of Neuvillette and Hydro. Besides the Abyss and the Heavenly Principles, there is also one other ancient power that has always been a dormant force in the game's lore, but never quite had the presence necessary to appear in the game's main story itself. And that is the power of the Moon Sisters. Arya, Sonnet, and Canon, as known from the book series Heart's Desire, were the three sisters who would take turns serving as Teyvat's moon. They were also known as the Iridescent, Eternal, and Frost Moon, though in terms of knowing which one is which, we don't have any information on that just yet. And we also don't really know what kind of godly powers or sort of element in existence that they govern over Teyvat. Though we can maybe infer from the Song of Welkin Moon teasers that the Eternal Moon has something to do with connecting the land and the sky. The Iridescent Moon held control over the oceans just like the way our real moon does, while the Frost Moon had something to do with the connection between the surface level with the underground realms, but all of this is just pure speculation. It's also unclear if they had just died out due to the effects of Nibelung's fight against the Heavenly Principles, or that they simply, for some reason, killed each other. In any case, the important thing to realize is that amongst the ancient celestic powers that hovers around the authority over Teyvat, the Moon Sisters' powers is still the only force that doesn't really quite have a direct representation in the game's present lore. And through the Welkin Moon teasers, it's pretty evident that multiple factions are trying to aim for it, but I have a feeling that the Hexenzirkel is going to be the one to really gun for it, just because of how the situation for Not Cry had been set up throughout Genshin's story. Like I said, the Harbingers via the Tsaritsa have the most power revolving around the Heavenly Principles' Teyvat authority in the Gnosis. The five sinners of Khandria have access to both the powers of the Abyss and ostensibly another portion of the Heavenly Principles' authority via Reindotter's existence as the ruler of life. But this is probably now a pretty contentious thing to say since we don't even know if Reindotter can still be categorized as being in the same camp with the other sinners, the way we can still say with more certainty that Sertologi is probably still in the same boat with Vedrfolnir. Albedo did say that after devouring Nabirius' heart that Reindotter seemed to have found a new modicum of peace. Maybe during the Cataclysm times she wasn't quite herself and was therefore lulled into becoming one of the five sinners of Khandria, due to a difference in her present psychological state, and maybe since then she might have changed significantly to the point where she wouldn't align herself with those other sinners anymore. Which is kind of what I want to really think of the situation, since it just kind of wouldn't make sense to me that Naberius or the other shades wouldn't do something about having someone that the heavenly principles have probably had multiple issues with beforehand become the entity that ended up taking over the physical existence of the ruler of life. But again, we are going to need much more information on that from here on out. But even with all the uncertainty, we can say that Ryandaughtr is still definitely a part of the Hexenzirkel camp. And with her already securing an influence of the heavenly principle side of things, it's entirely possible that they would want to secure a better grasp on Teyvat's governance by either reviving or taking over the only other celestic power that had yet to be touched or controlled by another faction, which is the Moon Sisters' powers. With both Alice and Nicole personally gracing Notcry with their presence, and with Varka going there with the express purpose of being there for the moon, it's clear that the Hexenzirkel mages are taking the initiative. I mean, Alice said she wants to catch up with an old friend first, and honestly, considering this is Alice that we're talking about, this could mean a plethora of things in terms of who she is actually trying to meet. The number one and simplest possibility is that she is meeting up with Nicole first, though considering the fact that Nicole is still a relatively active Hexenzirkel member, calling her an old friend in this context might be a bit off since they may have still kept more contact on the regular, but this is still one of the more obvious options. Option number two, we have her meeting up with Varka first, considering the fact that both of them have gone on their own journeys for quite a while now. And again, couple that with Varka's whole "I'm here for the moon" thing, there might be a scenario where we can take that as his cue of being there to help out Alice. It's clear to begin with that Mondstadt and Alice in particular have a deeper connection compared to other organizations. Hexenzirkel mages literally having their headquarters set up in Mondstadt and Venti having a direct call line to Alice is enough to symbolize their connection with Barbados and Mondstadt. And, well, besides the obvious connection of Halbedo, the mages also having a secret underground library where they organize and commence any business that requires their direct attention inside the Knights of Favonius' very own headquarters should also be enough of a clue to how tightly knit they are. Especially with Varka, who would have to know about it and have the power to provide maintenance to the library in secrecy, most likely via Lisa. And number three, well, honestly, it could be any one of the new characters that are being teased for Notcry, but if we want to make it interesting, then it could be one of the following two. Number one, she is meeting Columbina. And at this point, considering the fact that Renova can somewhat consider Piero as an old acquaintance, then it really is not all that far-fetched to expect for Alice to have been old friends with a Harbinger, especially one of the big boys. They share the same air for mystery, dramatism, and borderline looking like they scream psycho on the surface anyway. And the second option, which I think is the more interesting one, is that she wants to meet up with the moon itself. Alice was described by Skirk as the sustainer of the world's borders. It wouldn't be a surprise if the mage had done some sort of space expedition beforehand, and considering the fact that she has had access to items that were said to have originated from beyond Teyvat, even the old-ass KFC collab wings featured Alice in the story, it wouldn't be a surprise that she has had the chance to converse in some way with the remaining moon, because as we know, while the two of the three moon sisters have been confirmed by Skirk to pretty much be dead since they are now physically just shards and fragments, there is still the third one that kinda looks like she's dead, but according to Skirk, actually still has a little bit of their will left in their existence. If there's anyone in Genshin's whole lore and in Teyvat's existence that has more than a 0% chance of conversing with that moon spirit, then it would be Alice. That is, unless a non-bending boomerang-wielding playboy is around. Plus, she's got the age for it as well. She's probably older than the Cataclysm and has certainly got the range of exploration to achieve such a feat. To sum it up, I think it'll be pretty neat to have these factions go after certain celestic powers to make it look like the power scales between the differing sides of Teyvat seem a bit more balanced. The Fatui and the Abyss Order has a hold on the surface authority of Teyvat and the Abyss itself, while the Hexenzirkel takes over the powers of the moon, whilst ostensibly having a connection to the Shades via Ryandaughtr, who seemed to be shedding off her Khaenri'ah connection and is more on the governing side of the heavenly principles. Though of course, there's every possibility that she just doesn't care anymore. No matter the sides, it's possible that she's now just all about focusing on her pursuit in understanding and perfecting the creation of life. That's it for this video. As usual, thanks for coming by. I do have certain ideas that I want to turn into more content, particularly ones that revolves around making a quick catch-up guide on Genshin's lore for people who are just trying to get up to speed before Notcry hits, and I do have some things I want to talk about regarding the existence of older Mondstadt characters that can maybe put into play with the newer ones, especially characters like Jean and Diluc and their potential history with Varka, which I suspect he would have something to do with Dormant Port, if that ever gets out of development hell. Until the next video, the name's Leafy, and I'll see you all next time. Sayonara.